Hello and welcome along once again to It'll Be Alright in the 90s, the podcast that still can't pick up Channel 5 on their Matsui portable. My name's Stu Joslin, and joining me as always is Alex Greenwood. Do you remember the launch of... Sorry, that was awfully... what's the word I'm looking for? Observational comedy. Do you remember that? Do you remember the launch of Channel 5?
I remember it mainly because one of my friends, who's a mega Spice Girls fan, often refers to the fact that they were the first. I think they launched it or something.
That's right. And for an extra 5 points, can you name the song? I'll give you a clue which they covered to open the launch. There was a clip of them covering a famous song from the 1960s, and that was what launched. That was what launched the channel, if I remember correctly.
Is it a song that relates to the number 5?
Yes. Yeah.
All I can think of is I don't know, something by the Jackson 5.
Unfortunately not. No, it was a 5 4 3 2 1 by Manfred Mann.
Okay.
I think so. Anyway, we've diverted way off.
That's the earliest we've ever gone down a tangent there, isn't it?
Very true, and possibly setting a good precedent for this episode, I think, because I think there's a lot of rabbit holes we're going to go down with the topic we've got for today. How are you doing, mate? In any case, you're becoming the second of the 2 hosts of this podcast to move house during production. How's that going for you?
Yeah, well, we're right in the midst of it, so I'm recording in a room where most things are now in boxes and the shelves are bare. But I think starting the podcast must have done something to both of us that made us feel like we needed to just big changes. This was a big change, so. And we needed to make other changes in our lives. So I will be taking up karate next week, and the following week I will be doing something else different. I couldn't think of quick enough there. This is why. Thank God we record this podcast, because my brain is not quick enough to ever be, a live broadcaster.
The unstoppable force that is It'll Be Alright in the 90s cannot be denied. It's irresistible.
I set myself up for that. As I was setting myself up with having, I said, and the following year, I knew as I was saying that I didn't have anything. I was empty, and I was still saying it. But there you go.
Hey, it's all good.
How are you?
Not too bad, mate. Not too bad. It is. I don't know about you. It's about 30 degrees where I am. We're recording this on the 8th of September. Listeners in the far future, and this is highly unseasonal. But we're here. We're suffering for our art. We're recording the episode. We're going to plow on. Nothing gets in the way. Moving house, unseasonal weather. Nothing gets in the way of It'll Be Alright in the 90s.
Exactly.
So, before we go any further, I should just mention that this week's episode of It'll Be Alright in the 90s is sponsored by Great Mills. If you simply mention the code ALRIGHT90s at the checkout when purchasing 3 items from the Ron Seal Creosote range, you'll receive the cheapest item absolutely free. So thank you very much to Great Mills and Ron Seal for coming through for us with the sponsorship this week. Very much appreciated.
Oh, that's great. Yeah, thanks. My dad's going to be overjoyed to hear that, because he's often to be found down Great Mills on Bumpers Farm in Chippenham. So
there we go.
Text him that.
If anybody's got any creosoting you need done this weekend, then get down there. It's on us. It's on us. To start us off then, have we got anything in the mailbag this week?
I have one short message. Actually, before I read out the message I do have an addendum from the last episode we did. I basically embarrassed myself, because one of my choices for the this was the Britpop episode. My third choice was a stereophonic song called "I Wouldn't Believe Your Radio," but I was referring to it as "I Wouldn't Believe Your Wireless Radio," because that's obviously the lyric.
That is the line, yes,
but not the name of the song, and that was embarrassing, especially because I was talking to you, and you are a massive Stereophonics fan. You nobly didn't correct me in front of everyone, but I was embarrassed to see that after we finished recording that I said it wrong. So I just wanted to get that out of the way.
Hey.
I'm now aware of it, but
well,
onto the. Do you have anything you want to correct? Have you embarrassed yourself over the previous episodes?
I did actually. Again, in the Britpop episode, there's a part where I say we'll play in "Silly Little Rich Cow" by Midget, and then as I was listening to the episode, I realised that I hadn't sent you it to play in to put in the episode. So apologies, listeners, if you were looking out for that. Maybe I'll play a snippet of it at the end of this episode because it's my turn to edit. So maybe we'll catch up that way.
I couldn't find it. That was the reason that I was trying to put it in, but I couldn't find it. I couldn't find it on YouTube to hear or anything. So.
Obscure doesn't begin to cover it. But as for the I wouldn't believe your radio thing, we'll consider it a first warning, but don't worry about it. Okay. No problem at all.
Thank you. So yeah, the only message I've got is from a friend of the pod, Ian, who's messaged in, and this relates back to I think it was the second or third episode, which was on adverts from the 90s, and it wasn't the second or third, whatever episode it was, adverts of the 90s. And it's the Nike advert that I chose, the Heaven and Hell. Well, I can't remember what the name of it was, but Ian did some research and he found this quote from one of the people who worked on it, which I thought was quite interesting. So I'll just read that out now. He said, 7 years ago, I worked on this commercial. We shot in Tunisia for 17 nights. Every night, one of the soccer stars would fly in and motorcade to the stadium. And he would shoot his part individually, which would include placing him in position for the mega mount motion control tilt-up shot, which reveals the whole team together. So it was later processed to include them all. So they weren't actually all there together. They all did it individually, all flown in on private jets to do it. And that also, because I think we refer to the fact that Hernan Crespo gets replaced by Thomas Brolin, I think.
Yes,
so
that's right.
That's clearly how they did it, because they were never both there anyway. So it was easy for them to do that. And then it says, at the time, 1995, which was when it was made, it was the most expensive commercial ever shot. And an example of the financial excess was that one night he needed a different lens ring for his camera, and the producers hired a private jet which flew from London to Tunisia to deliver them before dawn. So that just shows how high the budget was for that advert. And I just thought that was a bit of an interesting bit of trivia about that advert that we spoke about.
Absolutely. Yeah, no, brilliant to hear. Thanks, Ian, for getting in touch. And as always, if you've got anything you'd like to get in touch with us about anything we've spoken about on this episode or any other episode you've heard, get in touch with us via the methods we'll give to you at the end of the show. So now we went with a bit of a different tack this week, and fully embracing our new social media channels and everything else that we're using to spread the word of the pod. We actually got our act together a bit, and we've actually posted out the topics for this episode and the next episode out already for you guys to get in touch with. So it won't be a surprise to you regular listeners that today's topic is the forgotten TV of the 90s. So as per the usual form, we've each picked our three programs that we're going to talk about, and also maybe a little bit of a wild card at the end if there's time. And the parameters for this were simple. It had to be a TV program that only you seem to remember, that only we seem to remember and know about if you're talking about it in the pub. And did you ever see that? No idea what you're talking about. So, and we found this quite a fertile ground, didn't we, for things to come back up and talk about on the pod.
Yeah, I think this is a sort of topic that people love, and I love thinking about it and trying to come up with some ideas. I actually found it really hard to think of any ideas, because I either sort of knew something really well, but then it wasn't that forgotten, or I kind of vaguely remember something but didn't remember it enough to talk about. There were loads of things that kept coming. I thought, oh yeah, God, remember that, but all I could really remember was the name of it and one little bit about it. So I really struggled, but I kind of got there in the end. How about you? Did you find it easy to think of things for this criteria?
I had a couple of nailed-on ones that I definitely wanted to talk about, and then I've gone for a bit of a left-field one at the end. But this comes from the realm of children's TV, which I think you've got one as well. And I think the way we were chatting about this before the record, I think there might have to be an episode on children's TV as well, or maybe even a series, because there's a lot there to talk about.
Oh yeah, definitely. A very deep mine.
Indeed. So, would you like to go first, mate?
So I'm drinking water while we do this. As Stu said, it's 30 degrees.
Mate, it's so hot. It is so hot.
It's like pre thunderstorm sort of clamminess.
Yeah.
So yeah, my first choice. A little bit worried that people are going to hear this and say, "Well, that's not forgotten," but I don't think it's talked about that often. And I mean, I couldn't forget it because it haunted me at the time and still continues to. And this is Strange But True. And this aired on ITV from 1993 to 1997. And it was presented by Michael Aspel. You may or may not remember it, but it was a paranormal documentary program. And so it would see Michael Aspel was sort of introduced a little bit like Police Camera Action. He would be, sort of walking around speaking to camera, introducing the segments. And then each segment would be set around a supposedly true case of a haunting or some mysterious event. And there'd be witnesses who were sort of acting as talking heads, reliving it. And then there'd be some reconstructions as well, some brilliantly acted, I should say, reconstructions of the events. So yeah, it was like a bit like 999, but with ghosts. That's how you can think of it. Michael Aspel I quite often mix up with Alistair Stewart as well. So that sort of, ITV presenter of a certain age and
lots of gravitas.
Gravitas is exactly the word. Yeah. And as far as I know, Michael Aspel, Alistair Stewart, we obviously mentioned had a bit of an issue with drink driving. I don't know if Michael Aspel had any issues with ghosts. I don't know that.
Possibly.
It, but,
the most haunted television presenter on ITV.
So just as an example of some of the segments, I looked this up on Wikipedia in preparation for this, and it listed all the episodes and then the segment titles for each part of the episode. Some of them included Chris Robinson's Premonitions, Pete the Poltergeist, the Robert Taylor Incident, which sounds like a funk jazz band, I think, Nella Jones, Crime Solving Psychic, and finally the Rendlesham Incident. I mean, I'm intrigued by what the Rendlesham Incident is. Again, sounds a bit like a jazz fusion band.
It certainly does.
But some great names for their segments. But the one I've chosen, I've chosen the whole program, obviously, but the one I specifically want to talk about because it stuck in my head so deeply, which is season 1, episode 6, and it's the Stocksbridge bypass segment. And this is something that I was fortunate enough to find again on YouTube a few years ago and just refresh my memory. But it was basically, it's about the building of this bypass, which is not just north of Sheffield across the Peak District. So it's quite a rural area. And this bypass was being built, and it's the story goes that these security guards turned up to the site one night and were confronted by a group of children playing in an adjoining field. This was in the middle of the night.
Of all the people who claim to have witnessed unexplained phenomena, very few can offer what can be regarded as proof. Their stories can be easily dismissed, and often are, but do they deserve more? All we can do is look them in the eye and decide for ourselves whether they're genuine, and ask ourselves why anyone should make up such a story, especially when they risk ridicule. The key witnesses in our first story tonight are people you'd normally trust. Some indeed have frequently given evidence in courts of law. Here's the story, believe what you will. Ever since building work began, a new section of road across the top of the Peak District has attracted reports of strange happenings. The first was from 2 security guards, and this is what they saw one night.
Ring the roses.
A group of children running in a circle in a field at the side of a construction site.
So there were these children playing in this field, and they just vanished before their eyes. And I think maybe the same night, they also saw a monk who was stood on the half-finished overpass of the construction site. And then, so they were so freaked out that they went to the nearest church the next day, I think, and refused to leave, apparently, and were just nervous wrecks there. One of them, I think, left the job immediately, and the other one only hung around for another 3 months or something. So they were really freaked out. And then there's another reconstruction that shows a couple driving along this bridge which goes over the bypass just before it opened in it. And they saw this figure wearing flowing white robes and stuff, running and flailing across the field and then running up to the road and then disappearing. And I always thought that was a really creepy image. The reconstruction it's a rubbish reconstruction, basically. It just shows the drivers' faces as they're panicking. But I think that image stuck in my head as a kid. The idea of something running across the field towards a road and then in front of the car. But the specific scene that really I seem to remember prompted nightmares for me and just scaring me half to death when I watched it was two policemen turn up to basically act as watchmen overnight, and they're sat there at night in the dark and sort of just having a chat, and then all of a sudden one of them looks to their right and there's a sort of a torso of a person pressed right up against the window, like the passenger window,
Right.
And they show that, and he obviously jumps in the reconstruction, and there's something about that. I don't know why that freaks me out so much. Just that image of, you can't see a head or a face or anything. It's just like a person's chest right up against the window, and then it suddenly disappears. And then I can't remember what happens after that. They go into a bit more detail. I think those police officers were maybe retired as well or something like that. But just that image really stuck with me, and I think I was thinking maybe that was the first ever jump scare I'd ever experienced because
Right.
I mean, if it's just 93, this was the first series, and the program ran from 93 to 97. So 93, 94, I would have been 8 or 9. So definitely of an age where it wouldn't take a lot to freak me out. But I think, that might have been the first jump scare that I saw. And now I love horror films. Horror films is probably my favorite genre of film. So I wonder if this is fed into that somehow. But it left an indelible mark on my psyche, this program, and it freaked me out. And I watched it again the other night in preparation for this episode, and I made the mistake of watching it late at night, and it still gave me the heebie-jeebies.
Oh man, there you go. Once bitten, forever smitten. I do have vague memories of watching this myself when it was originally broadcast. I haven't had a quick look on YouTube just to refresh my own memory. Would I be right in saying that the people who have come forward to sort of to tell their stories, they're the ones that are also acting in the reconstructions? Is that right? And they're not using like professional actors or anything. Is it actually the people? Because that's the way it came across to me.
Yeah, that's a good question. I'm not sure, because I only really watched this Stockbridge bypass one again, and they only showed some of the talking heads. They didn't show the talking heads of the security guards and the police officers. No, they did actually. They did show one of the police officers, but I don't know if it was the same person. Good question. That would be brilliant if they did, but I'm not sure.
A lot cheaper, I suppose. To make. But then, would you necessarily want to react or reconstruct? Sorry, one of the most scary incidents that's ever happened in your lives. Would you really want to go through it again? So there you go. But yeah, he presented. They did like a reboot of This Is Your Life around this time as well, and I think he presented that, didn't he, as well? Aspel.
Yeah,
so,
that's what
he was on. He was ITV's main man. That's
what I think of him mostly connected to. Was he not the original presenter of that? Was there someone who did that before him? Yeah, it was. I think it was on in the 60s and 70s originally with an Irish guy called Eamon Andrews. Okay. And then they brought it back. Later on with Mickey A at the helm with the big red book. So yeah, okay. I'm such a child of the 90s. I think that he is just the original presenter. It's like with University Challenge. I'm of the Paxman generation. I think he is. Of course, University Challenge. But of course, was it Bam Gascoigne did it before? Bam Gascoigne, correct, yeah. But I'm not interested because it wasn't the 90s. And rightly so. Yeah. Cool. What was your first choice? So mine, and similarly to the Auteurs track, Lenny Valentino, that I spoke about last week, this is a bit of a cheat because I didn't actually become aware of this series until around 2009, 2010, when it came out on DVD. And I went back and revisited it then. But it's from 1991, and it's called The Game. And this is a series with Danny Baker, one of my favourite broadcasters. And the premise of the series is this: it's the closing stages of the East London Sunday League Division 4 1990-91 season. Okay, so there's a couple of teams gunning for the league, and there's also the Division 4 only trophy, the Dick Coppock Cup, to be decided. So for whatever reason, the ITV decided to go and cover these in 6 episodes, and they treat the games completely sincerely. So that there's gantries set up around the pitches are it's like in Hackney Marshes and places like that, but they've got the proper cameras. Danny's up on a gantry with a co-commentator, and he's commentating on the games. It is as much as a sporting program, it's also a
it's also a time capsule of a moment as well, because not only do you see the players obviously playing the games, but you also see them in the pub. You see some of them doing their jobs when they're interviewing them. You see the cars parked around the sides of the pitches, so there's lots of XR3Is and things around dotted around, and it's a complete, this is what 1991 was like. I rewatched the first episode for the pod, and it concerned two teams in the league, the Cock Hotel and then a team called the Coburn Arms. Now, the Cock Hotel team were rock bottom of the league. They hadn't won a game all season. In fact, they hadn't won a game for the entire 2 seasons of their existence so far. And this, as it would happen, was their first game under their new manager, who was a Scottish builder called John Smythe. And he quite happily admits to Danny, there's a little interview before the game kicks off, and he quite happily admits to Danny that the reason he took on the job was that they decided they wanted a new manager. He was in the pub that night and they asked him, and that was it. He took the job on with on no more basis than that. It ends in a chastening 8-1 defeat for the Cock Hotel. There's some fantastic own goals. There's action all over the pitch. Coburn have a particularly endearing character called John Priestaff playing up front for them, who again in the pre-match interviews admits that he a few weeks ago he went out and got slaughtered on a Saturday. They had a game on the Sunday and he scored 6. So now every Saturday night he goes out and gets slaughtered, and then he plays well in the morning. And it's all stuff like that. As you go on through the series, there's other types of teams. There's a team called Livingston Academicals, which are a team who formed when they went to the same polytechnic together, and they're a team full of doctors, teachers, architects, things like that, and they're playing against obviously Communal Gardens Sunday teams, against builders, labourers, taxi drivers, that sort of thing. The hero of the piece though is the striker for the team Young Prince B, and he's called Jamie Sykes, and he goes on to play a massive part throughout the series. I won't spoil it for everybody because it is on YouTube. The whole thing is on YouTube, and I think that there's a lot of our regular listeners will probably want to get stuck into this, because I think it will be up their street quite a lot. There hasn't been any other series like it since, and I think that it's something that could successfully be revisited again. Just taking a Sunday league somewhere and following it through, like for through its final stages and into a cup final and things like that. But just the way, like I said, they treat it so sincerely, and with all the interviews and the players. And there's a player who, before one of the cup semi-finals, one of the players gets married on the Saturday, and the whole team go to the wedding and the reception, and then they all turn out on the Sunday, including the guy who got married. So, the football is agricultural, but the entertainment is very, very good. And I think Danny Baker still sort of rates it as one of the best things he's ever done. So yeah, the game definitely well worth a look. And a little fact just before we move on, it was almost lost to us because it was only ever broadcast in the London area. It was never broadcast throughout the entire country. It was only broadcast regionally in ITV in London. Yeah. And as I understand it, before this DVD or the distributor, whoever's got it, sort of thought, oh, hang on a minute, and hooked it out, it was in what's called deep storage, which apparently is the last sort of resort for a TV program before it just gets wiped or thrown away. So it was almost lost. Right. But luckily the production company got it out, dug it out of deep storage, and preserved it for us all to enjoy. So yeah, 30 years old this year. Look it up on YouTube. It's absolutely fantastic, and that is the game. Yeah.
It's I watched a couple of. I didn't remember it. I mean, obviously it was only 6 when it came out. But I looked at some stuff on YouTube. I watched a lot of that first episode, and I think it's a good idea. It's it's almost one of those ideas where it's kind of hard to work out whether it's an amazing idea or whether there's a good reason why it hasn't been done before. I couldn't quite decide, but I enjoyed it. I mean, I love football, so the chances are I was going to like it. But I do, like you say, I like how sincerely it's done. It's not taking the mick out of these people. They are. Yeah. It's recognizing they're just normal people who, play football for Sunday League, and there's nothing wrong with that. So I enjoyed and appreciated the sincerity of that.
Have you ever been out on a Sunday morning and come across groups of enthusiastic, eager-looking people, holding bags, chatting, and creating an air of casual excitement? Have you ever wondered who they were or what they were doing? Well, they belong to a breed known as the Sunday morning footballer. Over the next few weeks, you're going to get to know them a bit better, on and off the pitch. The sport they play is the same as the professional version, except on Sunday mornings, they're not simply playing. They're involved in a game. The game.
But yeah, whether it could be remade or not, I think with the advent of so much stuff on YouTube, I can imagine it being maybe a YouTube only thing, because there's lots of Sunday League stuff on YouTube. So
this is very true, actually.
Yeah, maybe that. But yeah, if it came up again, then I'd certainly be up for it. So yeah, maybe hopefully we'll see it. We could maybe start a campaign, a hashtag.
That'd be cool, maybe. Yeah. I can't help but wonder where some of these people are now as well. Like, what happened to a few of the players who become prominent over the course of the series. Again, this would be brilliant for interview content, wouldn't it? I mean, if we could track down Jamie Sykes or John Smythe, or even Mr. Eric Shut It Samuels, the referee who becomes more prominent as the series goes on. If we could find any of them. Unfortunately, I think a few of them might be dead by now. Probably shouldn't say that, but
statistically, yeah.
Yeah, indeed. But there we go. Moving on, before we get too entrenched in Sunday League, what do you have for number 2?
Okay, my number 2 is, I'm going to go for my kids' TV choice here, which was a program called Rolf's Cartoon Club.
Uh-oh.
And I think you'll probably guess which Rolf this is. I don't think there are many Rolfs in 90s entertainment other than
there's
Rolf Harris.
Rolf the Muppet. It could have been. The brown dog Muppet. It could have been.
Yeah, of course.
Could have been him, but it wasn't.
No, it's not. So Rolf Harris presented this program. It ran from 1989, but before you get, it started in 89, but went to 1993. So it was predominantly the 90s, which I consider to be legitimate for this. And it aired on CITV, which was surprised me because I didn't watch CITV. I wasn't allowed to. So I'm surprised I saw this, but I'm not going to go into details of why I wasn't allowed to watch CITV. We'll save that for the kids' TV episode. But a lot to unpack there. A lot to unpack. Anyway, carry on. The premise was that Rolf Harris, this was in his graced days. If graced is indeed the opposite of disgraced, I'm not sure. And he would sit inside this studio, sort of surrounded by like a big desk with all his paints and his pens, and he'd just sort of give lessons on how to draw. He would mainly his cartoons. He was, I guess, a cartoon artist, or known for that at the time. And then it'd be interspersed even with showing cartoons, so mainly Hanna-Barbera and Looney Tunes. And this was the main reason why I tuned in. And there were also segments where he would go to art clubs, or maybe he'd go to a special effects studio or something like that, and he would sort of do a little bit of a reportage from there. And it was just a nice program. And it was something that it occurred to me right at the last minute when we were preparing for this episode. So I thought, hang on, this fits my criteria for Forgotten, because I couldn't even remember it for the 2 weeks I was trying to think of stuff. But I think it played a fairly big part in my brother's life as well, because he was really into cartooning and drawing at that point. I remember him having a book, a Rolf's Cartoon Club book, that was signed by Rolf. So and goodness knows where that is now. But it was just nice. Sort of, I say 90s. I don't really know what kids' TV is like at the moment these days. I only really see the occasional bit of In the Night Garden or PJ Masks or something like that. But this seemed quite 90s. That sort of very gentle, I guess, along the same DNA as the Tony Hart programs, Heart Attack, Heart on Art, whatever it was called, and Smart a bit later, and Art Attack, of course. So it's that sort of wholesome, friendly, seemingly safe. Well, we thought it was safe at the time, but maybe not. And it was just a program that I really remember from my childhood. I actually preferred an earlier program called Rolf's Cartoon Time, where he just showed cartoons. That's what, like I said, that's what I really wanted. I just wanted to see some Tom and Jerry, and that was just that. Whereas this had a bit more education to it. But as soon as I looked it up on YouTube and saw that studio again, like it all came back to me. And I'd be interested to know how many listeners remember it, because like I said, it took a while to come back to me. Yeah, I don't suppose you remember. I guess this would have been definitely before your time.
Yeah, vaguely. I could say, well, like you said, sorry. I'm more familiar with programs like Art Attack and Smart, which are later in the 90s. But I do remember it. I do remember it being on, and I remember it being on the TV specifically. But yeah, I think it was a bit. I think it was a bit before my time, unfortunately. But hey, that's that's what we're here. That's what we're here to talk about. We're here to educate each other as well as entertain.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, like those sorts of programs, like you say, your Art Attacks and your Smarts. I mean, I remember getting, I got like an Art Attack spin-off book, and I made a bowl that was like a pair of trousers. It was like two polystyrene cups for the legs, and then I don't know why I'm talking about this.
It's nostalgia. The nostalgia is just flying out of you. You can't stop it.
Those sorts of programs that actually encourage you to show you how to, you can do this, you can draw this, or you can make this, or things like that. I think that they were very important and very, very worthy at the time. Yeah, even though obviously we now know that this particular show was being presented by somebody who was not a very nice man.
Yeah. It's I mean, have you ever felt more let down by a 90s TV presenter or entertainer than that? Is anyone? He's up there for me as the most.
Yeah, no, I think so. Down. Yeah, I remember my mum not believing it when the news broke. I remember my mum being particularly affected. Yes. So, but anyway, we don't want to dwell on this, do we?
We do not want to dwell on it. Let's move quickly on to your second choice, free of sex offenders, hopefully.
Yeah, well, as far as I know, yes. Who knows what will happen? But no.
Well.
Hang on.
I've got my lawyers. The podcast lawyers just nudged me and said, like, get him under control.
I'll edit that out.
It's all right.
So my
Geoff.
second choice.
It's all right, Geoff. I've stopped.
Geoff, let me carry on. I know it's my final warning. All right. So you said earlier on that one of yours wasn't quite forgotten as such, but and I would go as far as to say this as well. There's still like a cult following of this program, but most people won't have a clue what you're talking about. So this is a TV program called This Morning with Richard, Not Judy, which aired 1998, 1999, and this was the second TV series for the then duo of Stuart Lee and Richard Herring. Their first series was Fist of Fun, which might be a little better well known. It's actually had a DVD re-release recently, which I think Lee and Herring actually had to buy the rights from the BBC for a particular amount of time so that they could release it themselves, because the BBC wouldn't do it. And I think there were plans to do the same for this, but unfortunately, I don't think Stuart Lee and Richard Herring actually get along anymore. I think the relationship's broken down over the last few years, so I don't think this one's going to see the light of day. But then again, thank God for YouTube. As with the game, it's all on there, so you can all go and see it. And this is one I do remember from the time, because I watched this program when it was originally run. So I was 10 years old in 1998 when it was first run, and I stumbled across it quite by accident with my friend Matt Coe, he of the European club soccer defeat from the video games episode. You might remember that. Yes. And we quickly became completely obsessed with it, and we were quoting it in the playground to each other. We thought it was hilarious. We didn't obviously understand the word of what was going on. It was going straight over our heads, but we thought it was hilarious. It was very sort of risque for the time slot. If you watch it now and realise that this was broadcast live on a Sunday lunchtime, a lot of the material will strike you as being definitely risque for the time slot. So I've noted down a few characters here which I remember off the top of my head. There was a character called the Curious Orange, which was the actor Paul Putner, just in a huge orange head, and he would just ask a curious question every week. But then the character slowly developed and became evil and all this sort of thing. There was Mark Gatiss providing an uncredited Mark Gatiss providing a voiceover as Greg Evigan for two different slots. So in the first series, it was When Insects Attack, And then in the second series, it was when things get knocked over, spill, or fall out of cupboards. And this was very much your strange but true reconstruction type pastiche.
Yeah.
And then they also, again, for a Sunday lunchtime, they had a slot called Sunday Heroes, which was Stuart Lee as Jesus with the disciples, and there would be sketches around that as well. It was unfortunately a victim of poor scheduling, and they made continuous references to this actually in the programme. Whenever there was any sort of sporting event on the Sunday or anything like that, it would get moved around in the schedules. Sometimes they would be off the air for a couple of weeks, because there were different things going on in that time slot, and they were a little bit of victims of that.
Hi, I am Greg Rudetsky, and I am English.
And I am Tim Hen Man. Do you see?
And we've decided to have a bit of a knockabout, so there won't be a Lee and Herring show again this week.
They've got to put the tennis on. It's the only sport the BBC's got left. Hey, take that.
It found it a bit hard to establish a viewership. And unfortunately, after the second series in 1999, it was cancelled. And yes, as I said, it was the last thing that Lee and Herring actually did together as a duo. I've rewatched it in my adulthood, and obviously now now that I can understand all of it, I enjoy it a lot more. But like I say, that this is something that I, as a 10-year-old, I've stumbled across and didn't understand at the time, but still found it so hilarious and sort of and so great that it's stuck with me all these years. And like I say, thank goodness for YouTube, because some kind soul has put it all up there, and it's every episode is available in full to watch. And I would highly recommend anybody who hasn't done so already, hasn't come across it, to go back and give it a watch, and hopefully we find it as funny and as essential as I have over the years.
Yeah, I think again, like you, a little bit too young for me at the time, but if it had been 5 years later, this would have been, my bread and butter. I love Stuart Lee's probably my favourite comedian now, and I also listen to Richard Herring's Leicester Square Theatre podcast quite regularly. Yeah.
Sorry, that was automatic. I do apologise.
Should you be referencing other podcasts on this? We don't want to make people go away and listen to anything but us, but
there's lots of good 90s people on that one though, isn't there? So yeah, it's probably probably a decent recommendation as they go.
Yeah. I guess you should always credit your heroes, shouldn't you? So yeah, I like both of them, and I was watching a couple of clips in preparation for this, and yeah, it's great. And it really, like you said, really odd that it's on at Sunday lunchtime, or late morning even. It's not something you'd expect to see there now. I guess this was pre T4 and those sort of things. Actually, no, it wasn't. Was it? It was kind of a similar time, I guess.
But I remember the Ozone mentioned in the last episode. I remember the Ozone running on straight on from this. It used to be on afterwards.
Okay.
So I think that sort of strand of late teen, early 20s programming was there at the time.
Yeah, I guess Dawson's Creek would have been started in 98, so probably around that time as well on Channel 4. Channel 4 was good then. I mean, it's good, still good now, but it was so good then.
Yeah.
You could just probably watch it from the moment you got up to the evening and not have a dud amongst everything in the schedule. But so it looks good. I think I might go back and watch some of the back catalogue again, because like I said, I love Stuart Lee, and the clips I saw look pretty bang on. So
I would highly recommend.
Good choice. Yeah, good choice. Okay, my third and final proper choice is, now this is really difficult to decide whether this was forgotten or not, because I bang on about it so much to my friends that is now, I think as far as they know, it's completely not forgotten. They just know it as that programme that I never watched, but Alex absolutely loves. And it's Due South, which ran for 4 seasons from 1994 to 1999. It was originally on the BBC. And then it was repeated about 10 years ago now on ITV 2 or 3 or something like that, which I used to watch when I was working part-time. And I adore this programme. This would be one of my favourite programmes of all time, regardless of the decade or whether it's forgotten or not. And it was, for anyone who doesn't know, it was created by Paul Haggis, who went on to write $1 Million Baby and Crash. both Oscar-winning films, so there was some pedigree there. He's actually now. No, I'm not going to talk about that. I was going to go back down a dark side. I'm not going to say that.
Yeah, okay, right. Geoff, it's all right. It's all right. Calm down.
Yeah,
we're not going there. It's all right.
It's okay,
Why don't you go and grab a cup of tea? You're all right. You're all right.
It's because he's hot. I mean, we're all hot, Geoff. Like,
there you go. A nice cup of tea cools you down, doesn't it? I mean,
yeah. I've never believed that, but anyway.
no. It seems like rubbish to me as well. Anyway, we said we wouldn't divert, and we've
no. So yeah, the premise of the program is that it follows the story of Constable Benton Fraser, who's a Mountie, which is, as I'm sure everyone knows, is a member of the Royal Canadian Mounted Police. Those guys who wear those red coats ride around on horses in Canada. And he's travelled to Chicago on the trail of the killers of his father, who was also a Mountie. And then for various reasons, he ends up being employed as a liaison officer by the Chicago Police Department, which brings him into contact with his partner, who becomes his partner at the police department, Detective Ray Vecchio. And Ray Vecchio and Fraser are very sort of, they're chalk and cheese in personalities. It's a classic comedy trope. I should have said it's a comedy drama, and it's like a perfectly matched comedy and drama. If you did a Venn diagram, it would be no, you wouldn't use a Venn diagram. Forget that. It's just perfectly. It's half and half, which is partly why I think it just really resonated with me. Because so the comedy comes from this chalk and cheese relationship between Vecchio and Fraser. Fraser being the sort of very mild mannered, super friendly, calm Canadian Mountie, and then Vecchio is this Italian American, very kind of dry, impatient, wise talking, wisecracking. Yeah, just it's obviously supposed to represent the US and Canadian personalities. And then from there it's kind of standalone episodes. Each episode has a start and a finish for a story, but there's the overarching story of Fraser trying to find the killers of his dad. And I just love it. I love detective programs, especially ones set in the US and Canada. So it's got that element for me. Like I said, the comedy's great. I think it's genuinely funny. One of the funniest bits about it is that Fraser's dad, who appears throughout the program as a ghost, appears only to Fraser, gives him advice and stuff. He's very deadpan. But his friend, who is still alive in the program, is called Buck Frobisher, and he's played by the late great Leslie Nielsen, one of the absolute legends of deadpan comedy. So he's in it every now and again, and that's great. And there's another thing that I love, whether it's in music or TV or films or any art, is melancholy. I love a thread of melancholy through art, and there's a lot of that in this. There's a lot of music that really plays it up, and some of the storylines are just have a lot of emotion to them. When I was rewatching the ITV repeats about 10 years ago, almost every episode would leave me with a lump in my throat at one point or other. So it has that sort of a bit of everything that I like, really. And I guess I watched it at a point in my life when I was starting to get into TV a little bit more. I could sort of understand it. I think it was aired around 6 o'clock on a Saturday tea time, maybe something like that. So we'd watch it as a family. So it's got that. But I do genuinely think it stands up now if you watch it. And I have to say, one of the best theme tunes ever. Again, you can hear that melancholy in that theme tune. I think there's something in that, but that sends shivers down my spine when I hear that theme tune. So maybe I'll put a clip of it in here so you can remind yourselves.
Directions on this map, but you're only going one way.
Yeah, I absolutely, I love it. I adore it. So what about you? Do you remember it?
My dad absolutely loved this program, and I'm so glad you picked it because it just took me right. And then I looked up I hadn't heard the theme tune or seen the title cards or anything for many years, but as soon as I looked them up, I was right back there. And I certainly, even before it came up, I knew that it said created by Paul Haggis at the end, and I'd totally forgotten that. But then just being in there and watching it, I knew that was coming up. So it's obviously left a deep mark on my psyche. But one thing that I didn't remember though was that it's actually like a comedy drama. I thought it was straight ahead. I just remembered it as being straight ahead drama, but clearly not. So yeah, and that would have been around the as you say, it was 94 to 99, I think you said, didn't you? So this would have been around the This Morning with Richard Not Judy time as well. And I think because This Morning with Richard Not Judy used to get a midweek repeat in the post-Simpsons slot. And then I think sometimes Due South used to follow on from that or be around the same time. So I think me and my dad would just sit and watch it all. But yeah, and as you say, the theme tune's excellent to the point where I actually had a look at the guitar chords.
Nice.
just to see if it was something I might be able to bumble my way through. No, excellent. And I think pretty much the full thing is available on YouTube. I just want to say, I know this is a thread running through here, but piracy is bad, kids. But this is all on YouTube, so go and have a look. I think the whole thing is on YouTube, so it might have to go on the list of things to go and discover all over again. And the fact that Leslie Nielsen's in it, which I didn't know at all, is absolutely superb. Fantastic. Well, Shall I tell you about my last one then?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, so I've got going for my sort of kids TV choice here, and I could have mentioned loads of things here, loads of sort of one or two series things that never got picked up or made again. I've written down a few here. I seem to remember one. I was a CITV kid, by the way. I think I mentioned that in the previous episode. But
yeah.
So all of this is from there. There was a show called Addams Family Tree, where there was a kid who could call on various people who were in his family tree, like throughout history, to help him through his difficult child's life. I seem to remember June Whitfield showing up in one episode as like an Elizabethan type character, but I can't find any trace of that really anywhere. But it definitely happened. I know that. There was one called Matt's Millions. I think it was based on a book, possibly, where there was he was either bedridden or something, but he couldn't go out and he couldn't go to school. But he wrote some software which made him a millionaire. This kid, and it was about him having all this money and what to do with that sort of thing. There was one called Woof about a kid who could turn into a dog. Do you remember? You remember that? Okay, we're on familiar ground now. So there was Woof, and also, of course, this isn't forgotten. We all know about Bernard's Watch, right? We all know about that.
I know the name. I think that was maybe slightly late for me, but yeah.
Okay, the kid he had the pocket watch, and he could stop time by pressing the button on top of the watch, and then go around and stop car accidents from happening and stuff by moving people out of the way. But I always wondered, did he carry on aging when he stopped the clock? So with all the times he stopped time, is he going to be like sort of 25, but really he should only be 13?
Yeah. That's quite interesting. Yeah, they could go back and revisit that and have Bernard from in like 25 years time, and it'd be quite a sad story, wouldn't it? Because he'd be old and he'd have to be really careful about how long he stopped time for, and he'd be like wrestling with it, like, do I want to age a bit more? He could be a fascinating
Hey, we should pitch that
drama.
Yeah. Where's Geoff? Is he downstairs? Let's get him back.
No.
I tell you, that guy's not worth the money we pay him. No. He's never out when you need him. Anyway, what I've gone for is a program called Out of Sight from 1997. I couldn't find any on YouTube, but from what I can recall, it's about a sort of secondary school age boy who discovers somewhere an old experiment, an old science experiment, and he recreates it to create a substance that when you spin, it's in like a spray bottle, and it can turn people and things invisible for like a couple of minutes, and the effects wear off just after a couple of minutes, and that is essentially the premise, and much hilarity ensues.
That sounds good. I like that premise.
Yeah, I can remember the theme tune clearly, which is one of the things I remember about it. I won't sing it for you now. But doing the little research that I could do about it, none of the actors who were actually in this program really went on to do anything else, apart from one guy called Sacha Dhawan, who played the best friend of the kid who invents the substance. And he went on, and he is now the master in Doctor Who.
Wow.
And he's been in other things as well. But yeah, he's gone on to have quite an acting career in his adult life. But everybody else in the show just sort of disappeared from view, really.
They are now out of sight, as it were.
Indeed. I seem to remember one episode that centred around 2 white Nissan Micras, and there was some sort of interplay that was going on, or somebody had got in the wrong car and it was invisible and it shouldn't have been, or I don't know. But yeah, it's one of these things where there's not much info about it online, and there's nothing on YouTube, so it exists as a figment of my memory only, unfortunately. But yeah, like I say, it's sort of representative of all these kids TV things from CITV that I remember as being, they were there and then they weren't, and this is the one that sort of says that to me the most. So yeah, I've gone with Out of Sight. Yeah, Potamus Park, that was another one. Load of animatronic hippopotamuses that lived on an island.
I don't remember that.
Yeah, I seem to remember a range of yogurts being like tie-in yogurts being brought out.
Yeah, I can kind of picture hippopotamus yogurts, but
yeah, I'll have to look. That's just come back to me. I'll have to look into that. But and just one final fact on this, because of course, as we've said, we will do a standalone episode on the kids TV. The last episode, the final episode of Out of Sight, was transmitted on my 10th birthday, the 10th of December 1998. So there you have it.
Nice.
It was kismet all along.
Well, yeah, I tried to look it up. I couldn't find anything about it, and I didn't remember it by name. So, and everything you said it hasn't sparked any memories. So, yeah, I think it just passed me by, I guess, in my CITV embargo. But yeah, it's. I am afraid I have nothing to say about it because I don't remember it. But that's the criteria we wanted. So, if you listener have heard of this and remember it, then yeah, message us and tell us what you think about it, and if we can find it somewhere, then well, if you can find it somewhere, let us know, and we'll look it up again. But
please do let us know. Have we got a couple of wild card suggestions of things that don't quite fit into the bill otherwise, but we still feel like they might warrant a mention?
Yeah. Before I do that, I've just realised I think I referred to a Tony Hart program as Heart Attack. Obviously, there wasn't a Tony Hart program called Heart Attack. I'm getting mixed up with Tony Hart and Art Attack. A program called Heart Attack would be absurd. It was called Heartbeat, I think.
Okay.
No, that's another program. I think it was. This is bad broadcasting.
Right.
I'm thinking on air.
The stereophonics thing last week, and now this. Jeff? Where is he? Jeff, I'll get this guy off.
He's our lawyer, not our manager. Actually, he's both. He does everything for us.
I mean, he's one man band, really. I mean, we should treat him a little better than we do, but
yeah, I did. I've embarrassed myself there.
No, not at all.
Well, thank you. So yeah, my wild card is a wild card because it fits the criteria perfectly, and I think it's probably as forgotten as the other ones, if not more. But I've chosen this as my sort of negative choice. It's called Dizzy Heights. I think a lot of people know it as Dizzy Heights Hotel, but I think it's actually just called Dizzy Heights. This was on Children's BBC from 1990 to 1993. It stars it's about a disastrous partnership of 2 managers who are trying to run this beaten up, dilapidated seaside hotel, and they were sort of real people, live action. But also in the hotel there was a family called the Gristles, and this family were puppets, spitting image style puppets to be precise. I don't know if they were made by the same company that made the spitting image puppets, but they look exactly the same basically. I've chosen this because a bit like Strange But True, but far less appropriately considering my age and that it's a CBBC program. It scared the hell out of me to such an extent that I distinctly remember literally hiding behind the sofa, which is, I know it's a cliche, but I remember going behind the sofa. And my friend and housemate Aaron also remembers this same episode and point in the episode, and he also was terrified. And I believe there were complaints made to the BBC about it. And it's just, all I can really remember is that the matriarch of the Gristle family, something had happened to her. I don't know if she'd been hypnotized or taken something, but she basically became deranged and was frothing at the mouth, and her eyes were going crazy, and it was just terrifying. Because if you can picture a spitting image puppet, they're kind of grotesque, aren't they? So
Yeah.
this combination of things just terrified me. And I would love to know if anyone else. This is partly why I've chosen it, because I want to know if anyone else listening remembers it and was also traumatized by this event. But yeah, that's my wild card, the terrifying Dizzy Heights Hotel.
No recollection of this myself, I'm afraid. But again, I looked it up and I can see definitely why you would have reacted that way. There were shows that apparently, now I don't remember this, my mum says that I used to hide behind the sofa whenever Fraggle Rock came on for some reason. I can't tell you why, because I love the Muppets now and that whole oeuvre, you know.
Yeah.
So that's one for the book. I used to hide behind the sofa at Fraggle Rock, and I should have hidden behind the sofa for this one, and I think you will too if you look it up, because my wild card is the 1996 game show Full Swing. Now this one came back to me while I was thinking about it. So have you seen it? You're laughing already.
Yeah. I looked it up when you sent it to me. Dear God.
Okay, so you won't be surprised to hear then that it only lasted for one series, and this is Sir Jimmy Tarbuck. If he isn't, he should be. Sir Jimmy Tarbuck hosting. Essentially, it was Big Break, but with golf. And you won't be surprised to hear that the same production team were behind both programs. So clearly, just attempting to capitalise on the popularity of a sport-based game show. I watched the very first episode that was broadcast, in order to remind myself, and it begins with Tarbuck driving about 5 or 6 yards in a golf buggy. Just when they introduce him.
Yeah, you see him start, don't you? Like the camera comes up and the studio lights are down. You can see him parked there, and then he kicks it into gear,
and then just drives up to where the camera is. Then he starts with just 5 minutes of hack stand-up. This has got nothing to do with anything.
Welcome to Full Swing, a new game show based on golf. And what do you think of the buggy, hey? The police have stopped me in this. He said, "What is this you're driving?" I said, "Hang on, copper." I said, "It only goes up to 45. He said, "That's not bad." I said, "Yes, but I live at 74. He said, "You were doing 85 miles an hour in a buggy." I said, "Well, let me give you my excuse." He said, "What is it?" I said, 4 weeks ago, my wife ran off with a traffic policeman. And I saw you in the mirror and I thought, my God, it's him, bringing her back. Right.
And it's a Big Break bullseye type thing. There are different elements of a golf course in the studio, and there's different games for the celebrities and their civilian partners to go over. It wasn't professional golfers, and there might have been in other episodes, but in the episode I watched, it was Tim Brooke Taylor, Ian St John from St and Greavesy, and of course Ronnie Corbett had to make an appearance because it was a golf-based light entertainment program. Yeah, and they were doing things like driving balls at one of those computer things, and it hits the sheet, and then it tells you where it would have landed on the fictional course and stuff like that. And it is, I mean, I watched about 10 minutes, and it was absolutely awful. The sound effects, the graphics, the writing, the structure of the game, everything was awful. And it's not a surprise that it only lasted 8 episodes. But between the ages of about 6 and maybe a bit older, I don't know, but between that age and then around 12 or 13, when I started to more go out with my friends, like Friday and Saturday night TV was the be all and end all. Like, it would be Noel's House Party, it would be Big Break, it would be Full Swing if it was on, the Generation Game. So I definitely would have watched every episode of this. But yeah, it just came to mind while I was thinking of a wild card, and again, definitely worth looking up on YouTube if you get the chance. Full Swing with Jimmy Tarbuck, and you can thank me later.
Yeah, it is. It's ridiculous, isn't it? It's trying to be bullseye, and then it's trying to be Big Break. It's that same, like, using a sport or a game, mixing in some people who play it, mixing members of the public. It just doesn't work, though. For a start, darts from Bullseye and Big Break obviously being snooker, both those games are played indoors normally, whereas golf is not. Golf is played on a golf course, so they're trying to bring it into a studio. Like you said, they have to use big screens. You hit it against the screen, and it does a computer graphic. It just doesn't work, and it's so boring. Like when I find Bullseye, when I come across Bullseye at late night on Challenge TV, I'm sort of drawn in. I end up watching a whole episode because there's something about it.
Yeah, you want to see what happens, right?
Yeah,
absolutely.
But with this, it was just I struggled to watch 5 minutes of it because it was just interminable, like waiting for the ball to land where it's going to land, and then Jimmy Tarbuck says, "Oh, that's 70 yards from the pin. Here's your question." It's just so slow and laborious, and
the ball is so small when it lands on that screen. They have to have a huge like ring around it so you can actually see where it is.
Yeah, these are computer graphics from the 90s as well. So
yeah,
I don't like golf. I don't care who hears it. I don't care if there's any listeners. I mean, I know a number of my friends play it and do enjoy it, for which I lose a great deal of respect every time I hear them talk about it. It's not my favourite sport. It's less than my favourite sport. It's one of my least favourite things in existence. So yeah, I'm glad you've chosen it and you've called it out, and hopefully it gets a little bit more ridicule in the YouTube comment section.
Tarbuck, by the way, worth mentioning, hosting the show in full golfing gear, including shoes. I did spot that. He's got like the golf cleats on as well, so
clacking around on the floor.
You can't fault the guy for dedication to it, can you? There you go.
No.
With all that out of the way, it's a late dip into the mailbag for some more correspondence, because as I said, we did post out ahead of time, which is rare for us, but we did post out that we were going to talk about this, and we've had a few comments in from the listeners, haven't we, Greeny?
We have, yes.
Here's the mailbag. You can hear it in action.
So one of the things that was mentioned on the Facebook page, I think it was Ian again, getting his second, maybe third mention on today's episode. He mentioned Green Claws, which was on Children BBC, and I would have definitely chosen this for my choice, one of my choices, if it were not for the fact that it's more 80s and 90s. It was actually only one series, which is really surprising. Apparently, I looked this up, actually. It was only one series because kids were too scared by the Green Claws character, even though he's that big, lovely, friendly, greenhouse-based ogre thing. But it was too scary, apparently. But it ran, from 89 to 90, mainly in the 89. But I really liked that as well. So that was mentioned. My brother listed, he sent me messages because I asked him for some ideas. And he listed Pirates of Darkwater, which I didn't remember. Fantastic Max. That was one of my favourite, maybe my first ever favourite program, as it were. The first program I ever watched, I thought that's my favourite, but that was 80, so I couldn't have it. The Snorks, The Girl from Tomorrow, which I also didn't remember. But just some names. I also had another one myself, actually, which was The Movie Game, which was presented by Philip Schofield. Had one of the best sets of kids TV ever. So yeah, they all came up, and there was one another friend of the pod, Kate Pro. She actually had she shouted out, well, it was a cry for help, actually, in terms of discovering what this program was that she can barely remember.
Yes.
All she can remember about it was that it was something to do with the ozone layer, a lift, and a plant. That's it. I mean, that's all we've got to go on.
That's all we've got to go on. Okay.
That's like ready, steady, cook levels of ingredients to cook with there. So if anyone, please help Kate Pro out. Some program from around the 90s. She doesn't actually say if it's a kids program or not, but probably was. Ozone layer, a lift, and a plant.
Yeah, anything on that, please do let us know, because I'll be honest, it's driving us mad. We can't find any sort of reference to any show like that. So although there was a shout that it might have been part of a different show, but I think that was rebuffed.
Yeah,
that idea was rebuffed. It's definitely its own series. This whatever it is.
Yeah, Lay responded saying it might have been episode 9, series 1 of Incredible Games, but apparently it's not that. So, although I can't actually see where that was refuted, denied, but if that's the case, then yeah, we're still looking. So yeah, if it's not that, what is it? Help us out.
Just a quick couple to finish from again, a friend of the pod, Tim Parker. He's nominated The Wild Thornberrys, one of his favourites. And we had a little chat about this, and I mentioned that Flea from the Red Hot Chili Peppers was one of the voices. I think he's just a character that he doesn't actually talk. He just sort of yells and makes noises. And Tim also pointed out that Flea is in Back to the Future 2, which I haven't seen, so I didn't know that.
Yeah. You don't see Back to the Future 2?
I have all 3 films on a DVD box set, but I've only ever got round to watching the first. So 2 and 3 are still in the pipeline. Listen, I'm still learning. I can't be across everything all of the time. I'm busy. I'm busy watching The Game and Lee and Harry. And he's also mentioned Defenders of the Earth, which I think you know more about than me. But is that 90s? Can we talk about that? There was some confusion as to whether it was counted.
I assumed it was 90s because I don't think I would have remembered it otherwise. But it could be very late 80s. I can't actually remember. I just remember watching it. And I believe the Phantom was one of the members of the Defenders of the Earth who went on to go solo, I think. But that's all I can really remember about it.
Right.
But good shout, Tim. Great shout.
I was just about to start talking about Biker Mice from Mars and the Hurricanes, but I think we'll leave that for our kids TV episode, shall we?
Yeah, that's everything we just mentioned there was kids TV. I guess it's because of our age, 90s TV.
There we are. That's it. Yeah, it's going to happen, isn't it?
Yeah. Next time we'll do that.
So, if you do want to get in touch about anything at all that we've spoken about today, or anything at all in previous episodes, and I'm going to try and do this from memory, Greenie.
Check.
Okay, then test my memory. All right. So the email address is allright90s@gmail.com, and that's all letters, no numbers. You can also find us on Twitter at allright90s. And we're also on Facebook. If you just search for It'll Be Alright in the 90s, you'll find our page. You can like, follow, and comment on us and with us on there. Is that all correct?
That is spot on. Yeah,
absolutely fantastic. See, I've been listening to you all these years. Next time, as we've already discussed over on our social media channels, we're going to be talking about Formula One in the 90s. Just moments, drivers, races, particular things about F1 in the 90s that strike us as memorable. So, as usual, if you've got anything to discuss about that subject, then let us know via the channels we've just mentioned. So until next time, it's good night from me.
Yeah, and it's good night from me. Good night.
Tell me what is on your mind.